Oh my goodness, where am I? There's no water left. It's all dried up. How did I get here? Out of this drain. Where are we gonna be next week? How am I gonna get there? Let's go to the jungle. Let's go to the jungle. We are looking for the jungle. We are trying to find our place. We popped out here and we don't know where we're going. But it reminds me of a story. A story about a drone. Have you ever played with a drone? We got Blaine a cheap one for his birthday a couple years ago, and he took it out and he really liked playing with it, and he could take pictures with it on his phone, and it was really cool. Well, this drone was flying over a foreign country, and they found a village that had never been found before. They didn't know these people existed. They talked in a language that nobody knew. Can you imagine finding somebody that they didn't know existed? Well, they talked a foreign language, and they talked a language that nobody understood, and they talked in a way that built a barrier between them. Right? Because they were different. They were different. They couldn't communicate. They couldn't understand the gospel. They couldn't understand anything. And so they just treated them different. They're like, nah, they're not good enough. We're not even gonna help them. They look like they need help, but we are not gonna help them because they're way too different. Ugh. I wonder if we can find some people that are different than us in our jungle. Look, here it is. I wonder if we can find somebody different in our jungle. Whoa. It's kind of scary back here. Whoa. The jungle. The mighty jungle. The lion sleeps tonight. People are different, and it's okay. But they thought, well, they're just jungle people. Nobody even knew they were there. Nobody can talk to them. So let's just forget about them. Oh, wait! I think I see somebody. Oh!
Hola, señor. ¿Qué estás haciendo aquí? Es un placer conocerte.
What? What is she talking about? I don't understand.
Quiero decir que eres nuevo y yo quiero conocerte.
See, this is what they were talking about. Who understands that? We're just going to leave them here, right? No. I wonder how they would tell somebody about Jesus.
Pues en el principio Dios creó el mundo y fue perfecto, pero nosotros los humanos pecamos y por eso no merecemos estar junto con Dios. En vez de merecemos morir. Pero hay un hombre que no merece morir y es el Hijo de Dios. Él vino a la tierra, vivió una vida perfecta y Él murió en nuestro lugar. Por eso, si creemos en Jesucristo, podemos tener una relación con Dios otra vez. ¿Quieres tener esa fe?
No idea. No idea. But I know Jesus works all over the world. And there's a story that we're going to hear about today about how we should treat people that are different than us, using an unexpected character. Let's go. So we're deep in the jungle today to hear a story about David. Not the stories that we've heard before. You know, like when he beat Goliath or when he messed up really bad. But today's story is about how he became king, right? He became king. How did he become king? because Saul was king before him, and usually the kings, when they died, their son would get to be king, or a grandson, or something like that. I wonder how this happened. Because David was not related to Saul, but he was called by God. I wonder how this happened. We're going to have to look in 2 Samuel chapter 9. Are you ready? David asked, "Is there anyone still left from the house of Saul who I can show kindness to for Jonathan's sake?" See, Jonathan was David's best friend. And they were tight. They were tight. And Jonathan was also killed in the battle where Saul died. And so David was looking for somebody to, is there anybody left that I can show kindness to? Now, there was a servant of Saul's, and they called him to appear before David. And the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" "Your servant," he replied. The king asked, "Is there no one left from the house of Saul whom I can show kindness?" Ziba answered, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both feet. Where is he?" Ziba answered, "He is at the house of Machir, son of Ammiel." So King David had him brought from the house to the palace. And when the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. David said, "Do not be afraid, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan." See, he could have hurt him. He could have killed him. He could have put him in jail. He could have done anything because he was the new king. Remember, kings can do whatever they want. "I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather, and you will always eat at my table." He bowed down and said, "What is your servant that you should notice a dog like me?" So he didn't think very highly of himself. He was crippled, his family had been lost, but David's telling him, "You can have everything your granddad had because I am showing mercy to you. And your dad was my best bud." The king summoned Ziba and said to him, "I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring him the crops, so that your master's grandson can be provided for. And you will always eat at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, "Your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands." So they ate at the table like David's son. So he was treating them like family. Well, he had a young son named Micah, and all of the members of Ziba's household were servants of his. He lived in Jerusalem because they always ate at the king's table, and he was always crippled in both feet. Do you have a best friend? I did growing up. His name was Robert. And we hung out all the time. We were together all the time. And he was like family. In fact, it got to where I was at his house so much and he was at my house so much, we didn't even have to knock on the door to come in. We just walked in because we were family. And as long as David was king, Jonathan's son was going to be treated like family. He broke all the traditions. He broke all the traditions because he wanted to show mercy and grace to people. People that were different than him. People that didn't really want him to be king because they thought it should be Saul's family. See, God wants us to love everybody just as David was loving Jonathan's son. Can you love people that way? See, you don't have to travel to a foreign country. You don't have to travel to the jungle to find somebody that is different than you, right? If you look at school, there are people right beside you that are different. If you look on your ball team or your gymnastics team, there are people that are beside you that are just as different. Maybe they believe different things than you. Maybe they don't want to do the same things you do. But see, God calls us to have compassion for all of those people. There was a time where I was in South Carolina working at my first church. And there was a girl, she was in 3rd grade, and I'll never forget it. And she came up to me and she goes, "I want to know, is Jesus the only way to get to heaven?" And I said, "Yes, Jesus is the only way to get to heaven. He says, 'I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.'" And she said, "Well, in my family, we're not allowed to believe that." And I said, "Really? Tell me why." And she said, "Well, my dad is different. He doesn't believe in God at all, and so he thinks there are all kinds of ways to get to heaven." And I had to look at this little girl, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And I said, "Your dad is wrong. Because the Bible clearly tells us that Jesus is the only way to be forgiven and to be in heaven." She believed different than me. She believed things that I didn't believe. Her dad believed things that I didn't believe. But I didn't tell her to stop coming to church. I didn't tell her to stop learning about who she thinks God is. We had to show compassion. We had neighbors that did things that we didn't believe in. We loved them anyway. And you know what? God changed them. It's our job to love, just like David loved Jonathan's son and gave him everything that he could. Our job is to love others. Let God take care of the rest. So this week, as you go, remember, let God take care of the stuff. You love people, even if they're different than you. Got it? Wonder where we'll end up next week.